So, welcome back to the Pit Stop. Today, I'd like to welcome one of my favorite NBA presidents, the 69th president of the NBA, Daryl Parks. Welcome, Daryl.
Thank you. Glad to be with you, Nick.
So, uh, one of my core pillars deals with management. It's part of my 4M. So, I would like to talk to you today about management, the way it existed, and some of your key priorities when you were president. Can you tell us what some of the key priorities were for you as far as management is concerned?
Well, ever since John Crump left us, we have been at a point where we've always been trying to look for the right executive director. But also, we recognized that there were other things along with the executive that we needed to support our function. Most of the problems have stemmed from us not having necessarily money to do that. So one of the priorities I had was to go and try and find some unencumbered monies from supporters that we could do and use to fund some positions to create and build out the office staff. I would believe that we needed to have, if nothing else, let's say someone on membership. There should be an employee supporting our membership efforts. There should be an employee supporting our lobbying efforts. There should be an employee really supporting our financial efforts, whether it's bookkeeping or auditing or what have you. Those are at least three basic places that I believe that we need to have adequate support for the executive. That should not fall on the executive squarely on that person's shoulders. So I worked toward those things and empowered. We the problem I had was I had to also get an executive director. So luckily, we had Bob Carr, and as he was leaving, he suggested that we hired Demetrius Cheatham. In typical National Bar fashion, we had to fight for her because not everybody agreed. So we had a big old nasty fight down in St. Martin about that. Uh,
Right.
we squared that off and got her in place, and she was able to hire some people of her choice. And we didn't meddle. So one thing I didn't do as president, I didn't meddle and tell her who she should hire. We got a little bit past that. So and it worked out well. It ended up she ended up getting those people, but for other reasons, most of those folks did not work out. And part of that has to go with due to the fact that our president's only there 12 months, and the next person comes in, they sort of believe that they were the first president ever elected, and have a grand scheme of how things should be.
Right. And so that's part of what, in my core pillars, I look at management as something that has to be effective, has to be efficient, and you've got to provide that person with the right tools to do the job. Do you agree?
I certainly agree, and I know that we have our ANSF committee, and hopefully that president is able to work hand in hand with the committee. I do believe in committees. The committees are important to the person that you put there. The chairperson is important, but I think the rest of the committee is also important.
And in terms of management as it relates to the board, you have any thoughts on how during your administration you were able to, manage the board and everything that comes with the 50 or so people on the board?
Yeah, one of the disadvantages I had was my firm was in the middle of the Trayvon Martin case in the middle of my administration.
Right.
So that took me away a lot, or better yet, I should say the board gave me a lot of grace.
Right.
They weren't on me as hard because they saw what I was out doing publicly. But also, too, I had a chief of staff who had come from the board. So having a chief of staff who knew the NBA comes from the board. And so that was Rhonda. And then Bernice from Cincinnati also was very helpful. So I think having people who are very seasoned, very open-minded, and I think that those two people were very open-minded, and they kind of Pam Mee was very helpful to me, but those two people had a whole different function from Pam and served a different purpose. It is late that kind of balanced out what was going on within my
Right.
administration.
Right. Right. And I've had an opportunity to work with you over the years, both when you were president and since that time. But one question I've never asked you is, why did you, being that you were out, civil rights leader, leading a law firm, Why did you decide to run for the presidency for the National Bar?
I mean, the guy started off as a Boston person. I ran for national Boston chair and lost.
Okay.
Um, and after I lost, I still felt the need. I always think it's important that our people stick together, try to find a common purpose, and try to do our best to work together. We don't have to always agree, but the plight of black folks, I kind of come from a background where the plight of black folks in general not good. And
Right.
so there needs to be people who can put their heads together, not for their own selfish purposes, but for purposes for the greater good. And I just believe that working for the greater good is something worth working for every day until the day you die.
Right. No, I agree. That's a great philosophy to have. And I feel the same way. I feel, I mean, ever since I've been a part of the National Bar Association, I've tried to work to make it better. I've tried to work to make, all of our lawyers better lawyers, the way people did with me when I was a young lawyer. Um, so the next question is, and I was going to ask you whether the NBA is still relevant, but I'm gonna assume you agree with me that it is relevant. But
But
can you tell our listeners?
let me say this though, Nick. In fact, this came up this past weekend down at our one of our Florida meetings, and there's room for a lot of other types of bars, that operate within our space, right?
Right, right,
There are some bars that's more gender oriented, right? And I think they serve a good purpose to support the people of those various genders. The thing that we all do is we bring them together, that collective strength of us as a
right,
people, and that is important because there's strength in numbers. And so
right,
I always remind our members that there's strength in numbers to bring those numbers together. Because so often there are people who may be sitting in a silo in Atlanta, Georgia, or Baltimore, and yeah, they probably have good bar associations for that city, right?
right,
The
right,
things that we can do as a collective national bar that they can't do as a city bar, a big city bar in some state.
right. And another thing that I've learned from going around visiting all these different cities on the tour is that there are actually people out there, even at some of these local affiliates that you're talking about. They're looking for us. They're looking for the NBA to come in and not just to give them, support, but to give them guidance on some things that they can do there locally to accomplish the bigger mission of the NBA. Do you see that way?
I think it is, and I want to add, I want to connect that with something you asked me about management, Nick. We have the ability to bring all of that collective management experience, right, and experience of an organization together to use for the greater good of everyone. You see it best when you see us supporting a nominee for federal judge.
Right, right,
We have the ability to coalesce together, put all his expertise together with his past ABA presidents, um, lobbying strength, political strength to support a candidate that the local they can do to some degree, but we can, I think, bring the final punch to pull it across the line.
right. I agree. And I was, explaining to some people that that there are a lot of bar associations, particularly like the ABA and the Florida State Bar and those bar associations. Their objective is to advance the profession and the professional development of their lawyers, and that's what their CLE. And I telling people, if you look at our bylaws, we're not just a bar association, but we are a social and civil rights organization because part of our objective is to promote legislation that makes certain that all of our citizens are treated fairly and equally. We have part of our objectives to look at our judiciary to make sure that we have a fair and balanced judiciary. So we have some objectives that are greater, or in addition to those that for us just being a bar association to just do professional development. Do you know why that uh, change was made in our bylaws?
No, I don't, but I'll say this. I think without question, the strength and the level of consciousness that a person gets from being involved with us is totally different from anything you get from your state bar or your local
Right,
bar.
right,
And so when a person comes to the national bar, spends some time, gets to know the people, finds a mentor, finds a friend, finds others that they can really learn from, it really gives an amazing experience. But also, too, it is a place where a young Black person can come and see what is possible in this profession if you do the right thing. They come and see successful lawyers. They can come and see successful judges in an environment that is welcoming to them. And that matters.
I think that's a great add to me for why people should get involved. So tell our viewers why they should come to the National Bar Association convention in July.
Or this year is even more special than the previous ones. This is one that will celebrate 100 years of all that collective greatness, all the way from Charles Hampton. You know, I'm in New Orleans right now, and I didn't know that Charles Hampton Houston was a lieutenant in the Army. And when he came
Wow.
back and gained his legal education, and that his level of fight and grit goes all the way to him fighting in the foreign wars on behalf of this country. And he brought that same tenacity. We talk about his tenacity
Right.
being at Howard, but now we know where it comes from. So all that collective spirit is going to coalesce in all these great lawyers, and we're going to have Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson there to give a great lecture. So, I mean, you're talking about a celebration of Black growth, Black success, Black presence. At a time where a lot of us are probably feeling under attack, we're going to find a way to celebrate us and the progress that we have made and fighting for our people in every way. So it's going to be a time of times.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Daryl, look, I know you got a lot of other things to do in addition to a successful, lawyer. I know you're a business entrepreneur. You got a lot of other things. So I really want to thank you for taking the time out to talk to us. And I appreciate your time.
And I want to thank you, Nick, for being our next president-elect. Good luck to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.